Right now, CBS New York's Book Club with Mary Calvi.
Ciphers, a triangulum, the low shoe square, and hexagrams. These are puzzles at the center of the novel The Puzzle Master by Danielle Trussoni. Each clue taking readers on an epic adventure where the future of the world is at stake.
I'm not a puzzle genius by any stretch of the imagination.
The summer thriller is the CBS New York Book Club's Reader's Choice.
Hello and welcome to the CBS New York Book Club. Our members called The Puzzle Master an adventure that kept them on edge. Like all the books we read, it has a tri-state twist taking place in upstate New York and the east side of Manhattan. Author Danielle Trussoni and I joined book club readers recently for a mid-read Zoom.
When I was little, I thought I'd read all the books in the library, and I never got to that point. I finally realized I couldn't do it.
One that comes to mind for me is Little Women, and I read it a long, long time ago. Years and years later, I don't know, something, I just wanted to read it again.
Puzzle Master is engaging.
It's intriguing. It's a page turner.
It's a very different subject. I really didn't know what to expect when I first started reading it.
I thought it was going to be one thing when I opened it, and it's just taken a lot of different turns.
I can't put it down.
Our readers had more to say on our Facebook page. Producer Danielle Parker will share some of their questions during the show. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Mary. Our club members really got into the spirit of this book, following the clues and getting swept up in the quest. Now our readers want Danielle Trussoni to break it all down. Mary?
What an epic adventure this novel took us on, Danielle. The book is called The Puzzle Master, but it is so much more. A love interest, thrills, chills, and did I mention the puzzles? I had the wonderful opportunity to connect with our author inside a most apropos place, a Gilded Age mansion on the water.
On the banks of the Hudson River sits a hidden gem, Glenview. Designed in 1876, the mansion is a paragon of taste and luxury with elements of Victorian Gothic. Its stately exterior is more than matched by its interior scheme.
It really is just such a stunning space.
A perfect setting to meet our CBS New York Book Club author, Danielle Trussoni.
Glancing down the corridor, I saw objects everywhere, stacked in every corner and piled on every surface, a great congregation of treasures.
In the pages of the novel, The Puzzle Master, settings play almost as big a role as its characters. A Gilded Age mansion is just one of the magnificent places where in the novel, reality and the supernatural collide, and an expert puzzle master is thrust into an ancient mystery, one with explosive consequences for the fate of humanity.
But this puzzle, if it was a puzzle at all, was incomplete. Only 10% filled with numbers or symbols. And the mystery of these absences lured him in, taunting him.
And I wondered if they taunted the author. Is she, too, a master of puzzles?
I'm not a puzzle genius by any stretch of the imagination.
For her, she tells me the puzzle is the weaving together of suspenseful elements into what I found to be a gripping novel.
A puzzle is a kind of way of connecting with someone in space and time. You make a problem and that person solves it, and it brings pleasure or fun.
And a sense of unity.
And a sense of unity. And having them in the book, I hope, and it makes me very happy to hear that some people that you talked to stopped and solved them, creates that, not only with the actual puzzle constructor, but actually with the character, that they feel like we're on the same page, we're solving this together, I'm invested in this story.
Invested they are. 6,000 CBS New York Book Club readers voted, and The Puzzle Master became our reader's choice. I was curious about Trussoni's writing process.
First draft is longhand. I have yellow legal pads, and I have a big stack of them next to my desk, like so that I feel inspired to fill them up. And I have a pen. I write by hand, and either that afternoon or maybe at the end of the week, I'll type them, type those pages into a Word document, and that's like a second draft.
Does it feel different when you're typing rather than writing longhand?
Completely. Yeah, absolutely different. It's like a totally different process.
That I am staying here and that I have this whole place to myself strikes me as both utterly wonderful and utterly terrifying at once.
And as we toured the mansion, so many questions I wanted to ask about the book, but one in particular as we passed an original large dollhouse on exhibit. Why did you introduce porcelain dolls into the story, which added a new twist to it?
Yeah.
That was a beautiful surprise that you added in the book.
Yeah, well, I inherited a porcelain doll from my great-grandmother, and forever, for maybe 10 years, I've wanted somehow to incorporate a porcelain doll into one of my novels, and this felt like the perfect time.
The timing and her process clearly worked. The Puzzle Master is Trussoni's 7th novel. I would imagine you must be thinking in a very different way in order to be able to weave these puzzles in throughout these stories. It's quite incredible.
I'm kind of, like the absent-minded professor around my house. My head is in the puzzles. But
how are you at Wordle?
Oh my God, I love Wordle. It's the one that I can do very, very well.
And welcome now to Danielle Trussoni. She joins us live from her home in Mexico. First of all, congratulations on your success with Puzzle Master, Danielle.
Thank you, Mary. It's a real pleasure to be here with you.
So I can't believe, how many languages now has it been translated into?
14. I was just in France helping to promote the French edition.
Oh, we're so excited for you. So tell me, your book is about puzzles, but it's so much more. How would you describe The Puzzle Master?
I would describe it as a kind of literary mystery that pulls you in with puzzles and then keeps you guessing. One thing that this book is a character-driven story as well as a thriller. And so getting to know the characters and being there with the characters is a big part of this book.
Let me ask you, what came first for you? Was it the story or was it the puzzles?
Oh my God. Price, who's really at the center of this story, and she's the one that discovers the main puzzle. Then came Mike Brink, who is the puzzle solver, the puzzle master, the eponymous character, and he just grabbed the story and ran with it. So it was the characters.
Danielle, I have to say, it's just brilliant the way you weaved all of this together. So exciting. We have so many questions for you, by the way. So let's get over to Danielle Parker, hear what our book club members have to say about The Puzzle Master.
Well, Mary, our readers had questions about Danielle's inspiration. Alexandria asks about Danielle's life experiences and whether certain events in her life played a part in creating the novel. And here's Emily with a similar question.
How did you come up with this story? What drove you to this tale, which is quite twisty and exciting?
So can you answer that question? And we have many more, by the way, too, with Danielle.
Sure. Well, I think listeners heard earlier that my great-grandmother left me a porcelain doll. And so that was one inspiration. But the other inspiration for this were just the puzzles themselves. During the pandemic, I was, like so many people, trapped inside, and I did Wordle every day. Crosswords every day. And I realized that the process of doing these puzzles felt a lot like my writing process. Having a mystery, having something I wanted to put together, and then going through a process of discovery that was actually really satisfying and having this kind of aha moment where the book came together. So I would say puzzles, yeah, certain things in my life, that porcelain doll definitely had an impact on this process. And also I met Will Shortz, who is the editor of the games page at the New York Times, and he is a real-life puzzle master. His life inspired me. I saw his puzzle library, which was very inspiring. So all those elements came together.
And you really leaned on real-life puzzle masters to develop those throughout the book, too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am not a puzzle master, full disclosure here. So I had to do some research. And so, yes, I met Will Shortz. He very generously took me to his home, showed me his puzzle library. I did lots of reading about the process of solving, and also about the character Mike Brink's accident. He is not just any old puzzle solver. He's someone who had a traumatic brain injury that altered his brain in a way that allowed him to solve puzzles very quickly, and has, sort of photographic memory. So I did a lot of reading about that condition that he has, which is a real condition, in fact.
I found that so fascinating because I didn't know much about it. So I loved reading your book and learning so many new things that I just never even thought I didn't know. We have more questions from our book club members, so let's get back over to Danielle with the next group of them.
The next group of them have to do with the puzzles. They were fascinated by the puzzles. Joe wants to know a little bit more about how they were constructed, how you worked in tandem with your puzzle constructors. And we have a question from the author of one of our beach bag books. These are the 5 new paperbacks that we liked, and we thought that readers could easily pack them along in their beach bags this summer with the Puzzle Master.
Hi Danielle, it's Yvette Meneses-Corfont, author of Where the Wandering Ends, and good morning from beautiful Corfu, where I'm researching my next book. You do such a beautiful job of blending history with story. I'd love to know if you have any advice or tips for writing historical fiction, and if you allow yourself to take any liberty with historical facts.
Yeah, so give us some advice about your research and how you were able to do it. That there's so much research that went into this, Danielle.
There is so much research in the Puzzle Master, and in order to keep it sort of straight, because it's different kinds of research, I did a couple of different I had a couple of different strategies. One, I spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to Will Shorts. There was an expert in porcelain. She was actually the director of the Sotheby's porcelain department. Her name was Anne Marie, like the character, and I sat down and interviewed her. I did a lot of reading, of course, and I keep all of those notes with me when I'm writing. I don't have an agenda before. You know, I do the research. I do a lot more research than I actually need. And then as I'm writing, it sort of comes through. I also have another technique. I like to go to the place that I'm writing about. So I went to a Gilded Age mansion upstate New York, and I went through it. I went to Prague, and I walked through the neighborhoods that I write about. I went to the Morgan Library, and I went, into the rooms and took pictures, and all of that inspired me and kept me accurate. I wanted everything in the Puzzle Master to feel real, even though there are some elements that go, off into the supernatural. I wanted the book to feel grounded, real, and that readers would feel immersed in this world as they were reading.
Well, it worked for sure. And what about the question in regard to the construction of the actual puzzles?
So as I mentioned, I'm not a puzzle person myself, so I actually worked with 2 ingenious puzzle constructors who sort of walked me through the process of how they make puzzles, which is, interestingly enough, a lot like writing, right? Like you come up with an idea and you have to sort of test it out. I would create a sort of plot point in the book. Like I would say, I need a puzzle that does this. And then Brendan Quigley Emmett was one of them. He actually would construct a puzzle, throw it at me, say, does this work? And I would put it in the book and we'd try it out. But I have to say that, although there are puzzles in the book for people who love to do puzzles, I always wrote around the puzzles so that people who were not so good at puzzles, who were not really interested, can just sort of move past them as well.
I just love every second of this. Danielle, thank you so much for offering such great information to us. When we come back, we have so much more. What does Danielle Trussoni have planned next for Mike Brink after The Puzzle Master? And it's time to vote on which book we will read next. We'll tell you how.
Right now, CBS New York's Book Club with Mary Calvi.
Welcome back. We're having so much fun talking about The Puzzle Master. It's just so fascinating to be able to read together and then share all of our thoughts. Did I not tell you that I thought Danielle Trussoni is a genius herself?
You did. As soon as you came back from the interview, you were like, this woman is beyond. Not just smart.
Exactly. We're talking
level.
Next level, because to be able to put all of that together and create this amazing story was really fascinating. Okay, I know we have a lot of questions from the Club Calvi group, so tell us more.
We do. In fact, one of the questions has to do with this layering that Danielle has put into The Puzzle Master. Our members were fascinated by the religious and spiritual aspects of the plot. Jody wants to know if Danielle has always been intrigued with the mysticism in the Jewish tradition. And Joanne thinks there may be a puzzle mystery in the name Mike Brink.
Hi, Danielle. The name of the Puzzle Master, Mike Brink, is just 3 letters away from the name of the Wall Street Journal's puzzle editor, Mike Schenck. The puzzle constructor, Brendan Emmett Quigley, who made some puzzles for your book, is a big fan of Mike Schenck's. Is the name Mike Brink an homage to one of Brendan's heroes, or just a coincidence?
Danielle, that's a big question. I know there are a lot of connections with the names in the book.
I'm learning something today. Thank you very much to the book club readers, because I had no idea that Mike Brink was close to that name was close to Mike Schenck. So no, I had no idea. But you know, Brendan, who is probably watching this, is probably laughing right now. It's the nature of this book, I think, and for me as a writer, is that it creates kind of backdoor mysteries, right? You're wondering, is the world full of puzzles? As you know, my daily life, am I going to come across something and suddenly there's going to be an acronym or a secret there? So I absolutely love that question. Thank you so much for that.
And what about the question in regard to mysticism? And tell us a little bit about that, your interest in it and your research in regard to it.
So I am interested in mysticism and the esoteric. You know, the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism in particular was something new for this project. I went to Catholic school. I grew up in an Italian-American community and learned a lot about the Judeo-Christian religion when I was, you know, a child. But this book in particular required a lot of research. And so I spoke with people who were much more knowledgeable about it than I am. And I brought a lot of, like everything else, a lot of research to that element of the book.
I was fascinated to learn details about areas I never knew about, like the creation of porcelain. I know as a writer myself, I'm always seeking out new information, maybe that other people might not know about. I'm wondering if you were thinking that same way.
So whether it's a strength or a weakness, I like to get really into the research. And when I knew I had a porcelain doll as sort of the vessel of the mystery, I knew that I needed to make it feel real, make it feel believable. And so that's when I did all of the research about porcelain. It wasn't a priority for me, you know, starting out. But as I was writing, it became more and more interesting how the history of something that we take for granted, like porcelain, like a porcelain cup, is so elaborate and interesting, and the history of how porcelain was made in China and in Europe became a focal point for a while for me. I mean, full disclosure, I ended up cutting about 80% of the of all of the work that I did about porcelain, but I feel like that kind of surrounding the reader with information and then pulling back makes it feel real and allows, as you said, the reader to learn something.
You know, I have a new appreciation for the teacup, so thank you for all of that. We have more questions from our book club members, so let's send it back over to Danielle.
Thank you, Mary. You know, the character Mike Brink really resonated with a lot of our readers, and we had several questions about him. Mary says that he's such a great character. He was such a great friend. She wanted to know how Danielle kept track of all the characters Mike interacted with. Didn't Danielle make a map? And we have this question from Judy about the future plans for Mike Brink.
Hello, Danielle. You mentioned you're working on a sequel. Can you give us any details?
Danielle, let us know. We're so curious.
Yes. So Mike Brink, I fell in love with Mike Brink too, by the way, as I was writing this. I didn't expect to. And so I'm writing a second book. It's set in Japan.
Wait, stop. We want to just applaud. Congratulations, a second book. This is so great with Mike Brink. So this is like part 2?
I think it's part 2.
Oh, wow. Fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And that book is called The Puzzle Box, and it's about Mike going to Japan to open a mysterious 19th century Japanese puzzle box.
I can't even imagine the research you're going to have to do. Have you traveled there?
So in March, I went to Japan. I spent 2 weeks researching all of the locations that Mike Brink goes to. I went to the Puzzle Box workshop in the original place where this fictional 19th century puzzle box was made, and I had a puzzle box constructor walk me through the process of how it's made.
Wow.
So it will all be very accurate and detail oriented, just exactly like the Puzzle Master.
And our book club member, Mary, had asked in regard to creating a map to keep track of everybody. I don't know, how did you do all of that? Your locations, too. You took us to so many locations, but let's start by talking about keeping track of the characters, and then I want to talk about the settings, including Morgan Library.
So I am one of those writers who likes to keep everything written down. I have a notebook with each of the characters, their names, their characteristics, their ages, their timelines, like how they became who they become in the book. So I keep it all pretty nailed down. I write it all down so that it's clear. The same with the settings, although the settings, as you mentioned earlier, are a bit like a character in the book. And so it's a different process for me to keep track of the settings. It's more, I travel there and I make it sort of a part of my life, so that when I'm writing about that setting, for example, this Gilded Age mansion that I was in, that became a central part of the book, I spent a lot of time there. I took a lot of pictures. I let it sort of sink in what it would be like to live in a place like that. So it's a little bit of a different process.
I'll tell you, I would love to live in that mansion we were in. My goodness, Glenview at the Hudson River Museum was just so beautiful and breathtaking. Danielle, we're going to talk a little bit more in a moment, but we'll be right back.
Right now, CBS New York's Book Club with Mary Calvi.
Welcome back to the CBS New York Book Club. We are getting ready to vote on the next book we will read all together. We will reveal our top 3 fic picks Wednesday on CBS News this morning. They will also be on our book club Facebook page and on our website at cbsnewyork.com. You can scan the QR code that is on your screen right now. Readers will vote for their favorites, and we will announce our Reader's Choice for you coming up as well. Now, I wanted to ask Danielle Trussoni just a couple more questions as I'm sitting here with Danielle Parker. Danielle, so this background that we see you in, is this the place where you write? Is this like your room?
This is my my little office nook.
I love
These
it.
are actually 19th century church doors that I had put together to make a screen to block off a little nook for me to write in.
It's important for you, right, to write every day? I mean, what's your process like?
I do write every day. I find that putting too much pressure on like one day to get it all done or a couple of days is just not effective for me. So if I write every day and I write a set number of hours every day, I feel like the material that I get is going to consistently build.
I love that. You know, Danielle, I know for me, it was like you write your first draft, but then there's so many edits and rewrites that for you, how many rewrites would you say there were for The Puzzle Master?
Oh my goodness, so many that I can't even count.
I know.
I go through this huge process even before it goes to an editor, to my editor. I write and rewrite, and putting this one together, because reading it is a little bit like reading, going through a puzzle. Writing it was a little bit like putting a puzzle together because the pieces, sort of all fit together this way. So I did a lot of drafts before in each of the sections to make them fit. This gets a little technical, but the transitions between those chapters become really important when you have so many moving pieces.
Well, we just want to say congratulations on being our Reader's Choice. It has been such a pleasure to meet you, to read your words. It's just really, really been so lovely. So thank you so much. And it has been great, right, to hear from all of our book club members. We're so glad so many were involved. 6,000 people voted.
6,000 people voted, and this has been the most wonderful experience. And I hope people in our audience join Club Calvi. Join Club Calvi. It's a great group.
Yeah, so thank you for everything you do, Danielle Parker. We so appreciate it. And we want to thank all of our Club Calvi members for joining us today and reading along with us this summer. And we dedicate this show to our Elise Finch, our colleague and our dear friend who passed away this week. She leaves behind her husband, Greg, daughter, Grace, and the rest of her family and her circle of friends.